All right, so we're going to look at knowledge check 23.5.1. For this one, we're going to use PER, which is a package that provides functions for functional programming style loops. And then I will use a little bit of dplyr. I think just one function from dplyr. All right, so we're going to focus on this built-in air quality data set, which we can see here. It's pretty simple. It's only got, 6 different variables. And what I want to do is actually use functional programming, the different map functions, to answer a few different questions. Okay. The first one is, how many distinct values are in each column? Well, the dplyr function provides a indistinct that will count how many distinct values are in a given column. So what we can do is we can say air quality. Now, whenever we apply a map function, we want to think about what do we expect the output to be. So in this case, we want how many distinct values. So that's going to be an integer, right? So let's go ahead and we want to find the map function that returns an integer. Okay, so that's the map underscore int. Now the function we want to apply to each column, right? So in this case, since we're mapping over a data frame, map is going to go to each column, iterate to each column and execute some function. And what that function is, I can just pass directly into my map function. And so now we see we get each column back. So we have an integer here, or excuse me, we have a vector that has the names of the columns and then the number of distinct values in each column. All right, let's look at the next one. Are there any missing values in this data set? All right, so right now this doesn't ask how many, this just asks, are there any missing values? Well, what we could do is iterate over each column. And I want to see, so I'm saying, are there missing values? So that's going to be yes or no. So what I want to get back is a logical. So now what I want to apply is, are there missing values, right? So you would think, let's go ahead and just pass is NA, and this should work. Well, it doesn't, because is NA is going to actually return multiple values from the column. Right? It's going to look at each element within a column and see if it's missing or present. So what I want to do is actually say any let me do this. Okay, so what are we doing here? Well, I'm passing a little bit of a different type of a function because I'm going to first look to see, are there any missing values in the column. We're going to basically look at each element, and then any is going to say, are any of those true, right? So since we have a little bit more complex function here that we're going to pass to our map function, I can do it in this form where I say, well, I'm going to supply a function. That's what that tilde does. It says I'm going to supply a function, and this function is going to be basically this nested function call. And this dot that I have is NA basically signals that is where I want the column of interest to be passed to. Now when I run this, now I get back, I see ozone there is a missing, at least one missing value. Solar has a missing value, and these other columns do not. Right? What if I want to know how many missing values are in there? Well, what I can actually do is change this. So I'm going to get an integer back because of how many missing elements are in there. And I can say sum is .na over the column. And now I see I've got 37 missing values and solar has 7 missing values. All right, let's look at this last one. What is the standard deviation for each variable? All right, let's air quality. Now, standard deviation typically has a decimal value. So what I want to get back in return is a double, a floating point. And so now I'm going to say compute the standard deviation. This is very simple. I don't need to have a more complex nested type of function as I did up here. This will just iterate over each column, apply the standard deviation function, and we get back in return. Oh, we have some NAs, and then we have some missing or some standard deviations for these columns. So what's going on here? Well, recall we do have missing values in some of these columns. And when we compute the standard deviation, right, it does not automatically remove missing values. So we need to pass this na.rm. How do we do that? Well, we can pass additional arguments to the function that we supply within the map function just by doing comma and then specifying the argument. So I'm going to do na equals true. Now when I run that, my function will remove those missing values and then compute the standard deviation on each column.